G'day Freedom Lovers, here we are with exclusive North Queensland Freedom Network content with Jared Rennick and Felicity Cole for the Seat of Herbert here. G'day guys, how are we?
Yeah, good, thanks Mark, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Oh, I'm good, thanks mate. Thanks for coming to Townsville again. We don't see too many Freedom Lovers coming up this way, unfortunately, you know, but it's good. You've become a bit of a rock star on the scene, my friend.
I don't know about that, but look, I'd much prefer just to get the results, get, the government out of our lives, get infrastructure built, deliver essential services and go home and, have a cup of tea and a biscuit.
I think we all just want to live our lives, isn't it,
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So how do we get back to just living our lives and not living in fear of the government trying to take everything away from us in some way, shape or form? Generally, there seem to be, excessive spending going on. They're taxing the hell out of us to pay for this excessive spending. How do you see we're solving this problem?
Well, the first thing to do is we've got to start building infrastructure and funding it ourselves with an infrastructure bank. Once we build that infrastructure and start generating income from that, we need to buy back the infrastructure we sold. We need to increase taxes on foreign profits sent offshore. We need to stop using foreign-made renewables to power ourselves. We do that. We also need to, I don't want to go too heavy here because it's just a short interview, but we've got to change our monetary system as well, and that's something we'll be talking about tonight, myself and Felicity, because yet again our monetary system relies on foreign debt, not domestic equity. Our tax system taxes profits earned here at twice the rate they do at profits offshore.
You've said some good stuff about how the Commonwealth Bank used to be for the Commonwealth, but it seems to be more, a foreign-owned corporation these days. Are you talking about perhaps reforming the Commonwealth Bank or creating something else?
No, creating something else now. The Commonwealth Bank's privatised, so we can't touch that. But what we can do is start a whole new bank from scratch. And there's a number of different banks that do a number of different things. We have a traditional savings bank, which is what the Commonwealth Bank used to be. People would make deposits, and then the bank would lend those deposits out as loans. And the beauty of that system was that the people who made the deposits were generally older retirees, and the people who took out the loans were younger people. And when they paid the interest back to the bank would pay that interest back to the older people who were retired, and the money stayed within the country. Once Paul Keating lifted capital controls in 1985, he let the foreign banks come in, and so they've effectively lent more to people than what they could afford. So they've inflated the price of houses, so people have got more and more in debt in terms of what they can afford on a relative basis. So now house prices are, say, 10 times average earnings, whereas once they were 4 times average earnings, but at least half the interest you pay now goes offshore instead of staying here in Australia. So we're seeing a leakage not just of profits in terms of bad tax, but also just through our own monetary system.
That seems to be a problem with just about everything at the moment. Everything seems to have some sort of a foreign element to it. I was just looking earlier today with speeding fines and the way that these little yellow boxes that are appearing all around town, popping up to steal our money, as far as I'm concerned. That's all foreign-owned corporations as well. So, even the speeding fines, foreigners are making money off. How are we going to deal with that as well?
Well, we need to have tighter controls in our Foreign Investment Review Board. It's just become all too easy. We should never have let foreigners either buy our infrastructure, which are monopolies and which were built by our parents, forefathers, for us. And we shouldn't allow them to buy infrastructure, and we just shouldn't, in terms of anything to do with a government agency, they just shouldn't be anywhere near, in my view. Yeah.
Another one, obviously, immigration's a bit of a problem at the moment, and it's having a cascading effect on the cost of living, housing prices, medical as well. I had to go home and fix my own broken toe because there was no one there to help. So what are we going to do there? Trump's on a massive deportation program at the moment, possibly a bit excessive, some might think, but, when you've brought so many in and it's unsustainable, how do we deal with this?
Well, we've got to do two things. Obviously, we've got to lower the rate of immigration, but we do need to do it sensibly so that we don't find ourselves gutting our entire economy. Unfortunately, we've allowed our economy to be... We've de-skilled our own children, I guess. Yet again, 40 years ago, 1985, very important year in Australia's economic history. The Button Plan basically said we can no longer compete in manufacturing. We're going to lift tariffs. We're going to let a lot of our manufacturing go offshore, and we'll become a high-service economy. We haven't really become a high-service economy. We've become a low-service economy. Lots of NDIS, lots of aged care, lots of childcare, things like that. They're all important, but our economy, that can't be driving our economic growth because that's a service rather than an actual production of productions of goods. So we need to get our workforce focused on actually generating wealth And the way we do that is to build more dams, more power stations, provide cheaper energy so we can bring manufacturing back on shore. And then once we go back to owning our infrastructure, generating recurring revenue from our infrastructure, like power stations, like ports, like airports, like coal deposits and bauxite deposits up in North Queensland, Weipa. Those things generate royalties. They generate freight charges for the railway lines. We privatised Queensland Rail 15 years ago, and of course when we privatised the port, we lost that income when the ships come in. So that's what we need to do, is get that infrastructure back and then the skills. But if we also provide more cheaper energy, that makes it easier for our smaller business to compete. It also means that our consumers have paid less for their energy bills and have greater disposable income, so they can pay their home loans off faster as well. So this is why it all comes back to getting back on the tools, going back to owning our infrastructure, building more infrastructure, so we increase the supply of goods and services, which will then flow through the entire economy. And then ideally, if we can do that, bring down the household price relative to income, maybe one parent can stay at home, they can help raise the children, they can help look after grandma and granddad, and we go back to letting the family do the things the family should do, which is looking after granddad, grandma, the children, and volunteering up at tuck shops and things like that, rather than having the government have to pay people to do that, because when they're doing that, they have to collect taxes to do that, they raise taxes, and Australian businesses can't afford to compete when we've got such high labour taxes here in this country. So they send people offshore, and I talk to businesses all the time who are sending labour offshore because of either payroll tax or wages are too high. Now, when I say wages are too high, I'm not against high wages in terms of provided they've got a high... What I'm more interested in is high disposable income after the cost of living. So when I say high wages relative to the cost of living. If you're just giving someone a $10 pay rise, and that's going straight out their pocket into the hands of a company that's foreign owned, it's becoming a vicious cycle. So we've got to be more productive as well and make sure that our workers get a higher take-home pay, but they're also delivering, working in industries that are going to generate the wealth to pay for those wages.
So do you think perhaps returning to something such like a gold-backed system will help control the market a little bit?
Just want an infrastructure-backed system. Ultimately, every currency it's not really backed by gold. It's backed by your sovereign capabilities, and obviously, sovereign capabilities is obviously military. That is the most important thing. If the country was to fall tomorrow to another foreign country, you can forget about owning any cash. It'll be worthless because the Commonwealth of Australia will no longer exist. So in terms of currency, the most important thing to back your currency is your own military. That's really what backs a currency. But then the military, your military is only as good as your capacity to defend yourself. So obviously we need, and to have bridges, roads, power stations and everything like that as well. Because all that is dependent. And that's actually one of the reasons why I think we need to seriously consider bringing back an engineering division, a military engineering division within the Army who can build roads, build power stations. I mean, you could start off the military engineers to literally work on the Bruce Highway for the next decade to fix that up. But if we're in a war and a road gets bombed, you need your military engineers to actually fix that road in a hurry if we're to keep troops coming in or whatever, supply lines. So that's all a part of, and I think our skills base in this country has been so gutted, we really need to go back to basics, and that will require the military discipline that it takes to get our young people back into the workforce.
So perhaps more trade schools like we used to have, as opposed to a more, what is the word I'm looking for? School, what do you call it? Paper pen-based system.
Shufflers, pen pushers. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't need any more financial engineers in this country. We need more civil engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. Yeah.
No worries.
What do you think?
I totally agree, which is why I'm standing here today, particularly about the family issue. I've got 3 kids also, so that was very important for me to be. I didn't want anyone else parenting my kids. I wanted to be the stay-at-home mother, and I needed to be flexible to run them to school and so on. Childcare wasn't I'm not one of those people that can chuck a baby into childcare from 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
Feels too much like communism for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just takes out the best part of life too. You don't want your children going in between 0 and 3. I mean, I'm not against 5-day fortnights when they turn 4 the year before they go to school. I mean, that's okay. But, you know, I mean, your children are only young once. You don't want to be spending 45 years tied to the millstone of your job and then miss out seeing the best years of your children. Because once they become teenagers and older, they don't even want to know you. So, you know, until they're much older and they need you to look after their kids. But, so, you know, and we've seen that too. It's ironic, since we've had more children go through to higher education and more children going to childcare, our standards on the world international league tables has dropped.
It's dropped.
You know, and because you know, as someone who's a father of 3 children, you've got to be at home to read to them at night. You've got to make sure they eat a proper meal. You've got to run them around to the school sport. You've got to make sure they do their homework. You've got to make sure they stay in bed, clean their teeth. You know, all of these things might seem simple when you're an adult, but you might have to shout that, you know, tell them 50 times, brush your teeth, go to the toilet, get to bed, you know.
Yeah, we can all relate.
Yeah.
There's very important life-building stuff, and, you know, and building that connection and, you know, a little small sense of community as a family is very important, I think.
Yeah.
Is there anything else either of you would like to add before we wrap this up, as people are queuing up to get in here and have a listen?
Can I just thank Felicity Cole for running for the seat of Herbert. She's been a fantastic supporter of mine when I've spoken up here in the past, so I'm very pleased to have Felicity as our representative for People First here. And if anyone in Townsville wants to vote for Felicity, look for the People First logo and Felicity Cole. She'll make a great representative to Parliament, and we look forward to serving you in the next government if we manage to get in.
Absolutely, when you manage to get in. All over it, yep. Like I said, I align with all of Gera's policies, and we're just going to go for it. There's a lot of people here tonight, and people are going to be outside the door, I think. So it's a good venue. It's going to be a great event. Yeah.
It's great to see a packed out house, and I look forward to seeing this presentation. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Look forward to seeing you guys back in Federal Parliament looking out for us all.
No worries.
No worries.